Hey guys, this is Woodworking Junkies, and today I'm building a storage and organizer unit for the many storage and organizer boxes I have in my shop. Okay guys, so I've got a whole bunch of small tools or consumables and materials that was sold in some kind of storage and organizer box like the ones you see here. Now these boxes are quite convenient because besides organizing its contents, it also protects it during storage and transportation. The downside is because all these boxes are different sizes, to effectively store and organize them is a different story. Using some kind of crate or drawer won't really work because the layer on top will restrict access to the layer at the bottom. I then considered a type of cabinet that will allow me to stack the boxes vertically, but because there's such a big difference in size in some of these boxes, I think a unit like that would create a bit of wasted space, and also considering the size of my workshop, I don't really want to sacrifice the floor space. I then considered the unit that would sacrifice the least amount of floor space in my workshop, a type of tilting shelf up against the wall that would allow me to store the boxes like this. To gain access, I would tilt the shelf forward and grab the box at an angle like that. For the unit to be as effective as possible, I'm going to assemble two wide tilting shelves for the larger boxes and two narrow tilting shelves for the smaller boxes. I'm then going to install a frame and install the tilting shelves into the frame. I will then install a mechanism that will allow all four shelves to operate together.
But before I jump into today's video, I want to take a moment to thank my channel partner and the sponsor of this video, UPAT SA. UPAT SA is the official local distributor of brands such as Bennison, Stabila, Fisher and AEG. In my videos you will see me using many of these high quality products, and if you had any questions or wanted to know more about the products, all the relevant links will be in the description of this video. Right, so first up I'm going to assemble the actual shelf before installing it into the housing. Now to give the shelf a little bit of rigidity, I'm going to assemble the base and size using 3/4 inch or 18mm pine plywood. Now the width of the base and side planks will determine the depth of the shelf, which will limit the size box that I'll be able to store inside the shelf. I went with a width of about 65mm or 2.5 inches. This is going to be the basic framework or skeleton of each shelf, and from here I'm going to add a face board and a backboard. For the face board I'm using a 12mm or 1/2 inch plywood sheet because it doesn't need to be as strong as the base and sides, but it still needs to be thick enough because later I want to set a piece of plexiglass in it. For the backboard I'm using a 6mm or 1/4 inch piece because this is really just going to be a retainer to prevent the boxes from dropping out the back.
Okay guys, so this is the basic assembly of my tilting or folding shelf, and this is how the items are going to be stored inside it. Now as you can see, I'm trying to make use of the least intrusive dimension of these boxes, trying to get the unit as flat as possible against my wall. So when the shelf is closed and up against the wall, this is more or less what it's going to look like. And with the help of some hinges, when I want to gain access to what is stored inside the shelf, it's going to tilt forward like this, so I can just grab the box out of the storage slot. This brings me to my next obstacle. Viewing windows. I want to be able to see what's stored inside each shelf. So before I add those, I'm going to assemble the other 3 folding shelves as well and cut the windows in all at once.
Now to cut in these viewing windows, I am using a technique that I have used many times before. I'm drilling holes at the corners of the cutout and then using a jigsaw to remove the bulk of it. Then, using a router with a flush trim bit, I clean up the cut edge for a neat and tidy cutout. Now to guide the router with the flush trim bit, I set up a temporary fence. This will be the edge of the cutout. Now for the actual viewing window, I'm going to use plexiglass and I'm cutting it with my table saw, which is not ideal because it does tend to chip out, but because I'm going to add a border around it, it should conceal the chips. Now to set the plexiglass, I need to create a step along the edge of the cutout, and to do this I'm going to use a rabbet bit on my router. And to act as a retainer, keeping the plexiglass inside the step cutout, I'm going to add an aluminium border using aluminium strips and gluing them in place.
Okay guys, so at this point you should have a fairly decent idea of my vision for my folding or tilting shelf, and with the window cut in I should be able to easily identify what is stored inside. Next I need to assemble a frame that's going to allow me to get my folding shelves up against the wall.
Now, to enable these shelves to tilt forward when they are installed into the frame, I'm going to use normal cabinet hinges.
Okay, so that's more or less the assembly of my folding shelf. Over here is what it's going to look like when it's closed, and slightly open like that is when it's open. Obviously it doesn't have to be all the way open for it to be functional. So in this position I can put whatever I want inside and simply close it, and the item is stored. Okay, so next I need to add the closing and locking mechanism. Now I can have each shelf operating individually, but I would really like them to operate together. And to achieve this, I'm going to add a secondary pivot to each shelf on the side over here, and then link them together with a piece of aluminium angle. Okay, so before I get too carried away, I just quickly want to explain how the system is going to work. Each shelf has got two pivot points, one at the back where I installed the hinges and the other I'm going to install over here. Together they form a set. There's a set for each shelf. The distance between sets are not important, but the distance between the pivots within each set needs to remain constant. So even though this shelf is narrower than this shelf, the distance between the pivots are the same.
So to link all these shelves at their secondary pivot, I'm going to use a piece of aluminium angle, and to act as the pivot axis, I'm going to use a bolt. Now to limit wear between the bolt and the linkage or the aluminium angle, I'm going to set the bolt inside a rubber grommet.
Okay guys, so the mechanism seems to work as I had intended. Next I'm going to add a latching mechanism, some handles, maybe a few trim pieces, sand it down, and a retainer, because as I said, it doesn't need to open all the way, just like that, and I'll be able to put inside what I want to. Right guys, so that's the unit complete. It works and its contents is neatly stored and organized. Now the unit itself is not exactly compact, but the design is very forgiving on a critical small workshop resource, which is floor space. I feel like the design can be adapted to store different items like spray paint cans, or a scaled version could make a nifty little spice rack for the kitchen. But I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you think this is a useful addition to a small workshop, and can you think of any other uses for this mechanism? Any input you want to add, drop it in the comment section down below. Then just before I end off, I would like to once again thank UPAT SA for sponsoring this video, as well as you guys for your continued support. As I mentioned in my previous video, I am working on going full-time with my brand, and you guys can help me achieve that goal by interacting with this video. Hit a like, drop a comment, and if you want to be really generous, hit that super thanks button. And with that comes the end of this video. Remember, if you aren't subscribed yet and you want to see more shop organizers or these restorations that I'm going to start with very shortly, you should do that now and help me get to 250k before the end of the year. And finally, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time. Cheers.